By the time the bank called to say a lien had been placed against my house, my husband was gone. My mother-in-law had accused me of stealing from wounded soldiers, and half our community believed my uniform was nothing more than a costume. The phone pressed hot against my ear. A lawnmower growled somewhere beyond the kitchen window. The refrigerator hummed beneath it, steady and indifferent. On the counter, Scott's coffee had gone cold, leaving a bitter smell under the sharper scent of the lemon cleaner I had used before sunrise. First Sergeant Hayes, the bank representative said, "We need to discuss a home equity account connected to your property." My fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. The laminate pressed a hard ridge into my palm. "I never opened a home equity account," I said. The woman on the phone paused. Behind me, the back door stood open. Scott's muddy work boots were gone from the mat. So was the framed wedding photograph from the hallway table. "Miss Hayes," the woman said carefully, "your signature appears on the loan documents." A dog barked 3 houses away. A truck changed gears on the main road. Every sound reached me with unnatural clarity. "My signature appears on a lot of things," I said. "That does not mean I signed them." Another pause. Then she asked where I had been on the date the documents were notarized. I looked at the calendar beside the pantry. The date was circled in Scott's handwriting. 3 years earlier, I had been at a training site in another state, sleeping 4 hours a night and teaching young soldiers how to keep someone alive long enough to reach a surgeon. I had not been sitting in a bank office. I had not signed away my house, and I had not yet understood how long my husband and his mother had been using my name. 3 weeks earlier, Gloria Hayes had invited me to dinner. She called it a small gathering for Homefront Courage, the veterans charity she had built into the center of her life. Gloria liked that phrase, built into the center of her life. She said it whenever someone asked why her dining room walls were covered with photographs of wounded service members. What she never mentioned was that most of the photographs had her standing in the middle. That evening, rain had darkened the brick walkway to her front door. The air smelled of wet soil and rosemary from the planters beneath her windows. Through the glass, I could hear laughter, silverware touching china, and Gloria's bright public voice carrying above everyone else. Scott squeezed my hand before we went in. "Please don't interrogate anybody tonight," he said. I turned toward him. "I have never interrogated anyone at one of your mother's dinners. You ask questions like you're conducting an investigation. I ask where the money goes." Scott's mouth tightened. "Exactly." Before I could answer, Gloria opened the door. She wore navy blue silk and a small American flag pin above her heart. Her silver hair was arranged so perfectly that even the damp air seemed afraid to touch it. "There she is," Gloria said, lifting both hands. "Our hero." She kissed the air beside my cheek. The perfume she wore was sweet and heavy, roses over something medicinal. "Gloria," I said. Her smile flickered at the sound of her name instead of mother. Then she turned to the room. "Everyone, this is Morgan. First Sergeant Morgan Hayes. 46 years old and still making the rest of us look lazy." A few people laughed. I did not. I had asked her more than once not to announce my age and rank, as though she were introducing a prize horse. Scott placed his hand at the small of my back and guided me inside. About 20 people filled the living room and dining area. Most were longtime donors, retired business owners, church members, and family friends who had known Gloria for years. Several wore small pins with the Homefront Courage logo. Near the fireplace stood Jacob Turner. He was broader than I remembered, though one shoulder still rested slightly lower than the other. A pale line disappeared beneath the collar of his shirt. When Jacob saw me, his face softened. "Morgan," Jacob said. I crossed the room and embraced him carefully. His body felt solid beneath my arms, but I remembered a night when it had not. I remembered weight, heat, smoke, and his blood soaking through my gloves. Jacob stepped back. "You look good," he said. "You lie badly," I replied. He smiled. "I learned from officers. I am not an officer. That explains why I trust you." Scott cleared his throat behind me. Jacob looked at him. "Scott." "Jacob," Scott answered. The two men shook hands without warmth. Gloria called everyone to dinner before the silence became noticeable. Her dining table was covered in white linen. Small flags stood between the candles. At every place setting rested a cream-colored envelope stamped with a photograph of a soldier in dress uniform. I sat between Scott and Jacob. Gloria remained standing at the head of the table. "Tonight," Gloria said, "we are raising funds for emergency surgeries, home repairs, mobility equipment, and family support." Her voice softened at the practiced places. No veteran who sacrificed for this country should ever feel forgotten. Around the table, people nodded. I picked up the envelope in front of me. The photograph showed Specialist Eric Bell smiling beneath a line of printed text. Urgent reconstructive surgery needed. My thumb stopped over his name. The paper felt thick and expensive. I read the paragraph beneath the photograph twice. Eric had been dead for more than 3 years. I had attended his memorial service. I had stood beside his sister while a folded flag was placed in her hands. Beside me, Scott shifted. I turned the envelope over. On the back was a photograph of me kneeling beside a training casualty, my hands pressed against a simulated chest wound. Below it were the words, "The soldier who never leaves her wounded behind." My stomach tightened. I had never approved that photograph. I leaned toward Scott. "Why is Eric Bell on this envelope?" Scott did not look at me. "It must be old stock. It says his surgery is upcoming. They reuse templates. You cannot reuse a dead man as an upcoming medical emergency." Scott's knee pressed against mine beneath the table. "Not here," he whispered. I looked toward Gloria. She was telling a story about a veteran whose bathroom had supposedly been rebuilt by the foundation. I lowered my voice. "Who approved this campaign?" Scott lifted his water glass. "Morgan, let it go for one night. You knew Eric." "Yes." "You knew he died." His fingers tightened around the glass. Across the table, Jacob had stopped eating. He was watching Scott. Gloria tapped her spoon against her glass. "I would like to recognize someone special," she said. Her gaze found me. Every face turned in my direction. "No," I said quietly. Gloria smiled wider. "Morgan has never liked attention." "That is true," I said. A few people chuckled. Gloria continued. "But her image has inspired thousands of dollars in donations. People see a strong woman in uniform and remember what service looks like." I placed the envelope on the table. "Did I authorize this photograph?" The room changed, not loudly. A fork stopped halfway to someone's mouth. One woman lowered her wine glass. Jacob leaned back in his chair. Gloria's smile remained, but her eyes hardened. "This is hardly the time for paperwork. You used my photograph beside a fundraising appeal for a man who has been dead for 3 years. A donor near the end of the table looked down at his envelope. Gloria's fingers rested on the back of her chair. "There has obviously been a printing error." "Then who reviewed it?" Scott whispered my name. I kept my eyes on Gloria. "Who verified the beneficiary?" Gloria gave a small laugh. The sound was dry. "This is what she does," Gloria told the table. "Morgan enters a room and suddenly everyone is under inspection." I waited. Gloria tilted her head. "She is excellent when a camera is present. Perfect posture, perfect expression, perfect uniform." "Gloria," Scott said. His warning came too late. His mother looked directly at me. "She is only good at posing for cameras." The words landed softly. That made them worse. No one moved. Gloria lifted one shoulder. "Put a black woman in uniform, and they will turn her into a symbol. The military needed a face. Morgan gave them one." The candle flames trembled in the air from the vent. Something cold moved through my chest. I could have answered. I could have listed the soldiers I had trained, the bodies I had carried, the families I had called when someone did not come home. Instead, I set both hands flat on the table. Scott stared at his plate. He did not defend me. Jacob's chair scraped across the floor. The sound cut through the room. He stood slowly. "Take it back," Jacob said. Gloria blinked. "Excuse me?" "Take back what you said about her." Gloria's lips curved. "Jacob, I understand you are grateful to Morgan, but this is a family conversation." "No," Jacob said. "You made it public." His hands moved to the hem of his shirt. Scott pushed back from the table. "What are you doing?" Jacob lifted the fabric. A scar ran from beneath his ribs toward the center of his chest, thick and uneven, with smaller marks branching beside it. Several guests drew breath. Jacob pointed to the longest line. "I got this scar the night she saved my life." Gloria's smile disappeared. Jacob looked around the table. "Our vehicle caught fire after the blast. I was trapped beneath twisted metal." Morgan went back inside. His voice remained steady, but his fingers shook against the raised skin. "She had every reason to leave me. The ammunition was heating up. Smoke had filled the vehicle. She could barely see." My mouth went dry. Jacob looked at Gloria again. "She crawled through fire, cut my harness, and dragged me far enough away before the ammunition went off." No one spoke. Rain tapped against the windows. Jacob lowered his shirt. "She never posed for that." Gloria recovered first. "I did not say Morgan had never done anything brave." Jacob reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. "No," he said. "You only said the cameras made her valuable." He placed a clear plastic folder on the table. Inside was a copy of a cashier's check. My name appeared in the upper corner. Jacob slid it toward Gloria. You told donors your foundation paid for my surgery and recovery. Gloria looked at the document but did not touch it. Jacob opened the folder. This is the money Morgan sent after my insurance stopped covering rehabilitation. Scott went still beside me. Jacob added a hospital statement, an email confirmation, and a copy of a letter I had written years earlier. I recognized my own handwriting. You do not owe me thanks. Just get well. A woman across from Gloria lifted her envelope. Homefront Courage used Mr. Turner's story in last winter's campaign. Another donor spoke. The brochure said the foundation paid more than $100,000. Jacob nodded. They did not pay me anything. Gloria's face lost color. That is not accurate. I have every statement. There may have been indirect assistance. There was none. Gloria looked at Scott. It was brief, but I saw it. Not confusion. A warning. Scott pushed his chair back and stood. This has gone far enough. A young man near the sideboard reached toward the camera recording the dinner. Scott pointed at him. Turn that off. The young man hesitated. Gloria snapped. Now. The red light disappeared. People began speaking at once. Gloria insisted there had been an administrative misunderstanding. A donor asked for the beneficiary records. Another asked who controlled the foundation's payments. Through the noise, I watched Scott cross to the small laptop near the camera. He closed one window, removed a black flash drive, and slipped it into his pocket. Our eyes met. His face changed. Only for a second. But I saw fear. Gloria stepped close enough for her perfume to cover the smell of candle wax and roasted meat. You have no idea what you just destroyed, she whispered. I looked past her at Scott's hand pressed over the flash drive inside his jacket. No, I said. I think I am finally beginning to understand. We left without saying goodbye. Scott drove home too fast. Rain hissed beneath the tires, and the wipers struck the windshield with angry, regular blows. He did not speak. Neither did I. At home, I went upstairs to change out of my dress clothes. When I came back down, the back door was open. Cold air moved through the kitchen. Outside, Scott stood beside the fire pit. Flames curled around a stack of papers. What are you burning? I asked. He turned too quickly. Old foundation files. I walked across the wet patio. The heat touched my face. Smoke stung my eyes and carried the sour smell of ink and coated paper. Scott stepped between me and the fire. They contain private medical information. Then why were they in our house? He did not answer. A blackened page lifted in the heat, folded, and fell beyond the stone ring. I moved around him and trapped it beneath my shoe before the wind could carry it away. Scott grabbed my arm. Leave it. I looked down at his hand. He released me. I bent and picked up the paper by one unburned corner. Most of the page was gone, but the title remained. Beneficiary Reconciliation List. Beneath it, I could read 3 names. Jacob Turner, Eric Bell, and mine. Scott stared at the scorched page in my hand, as if the remaining words could testify against him. Give me that, he said. Rain tapped against the patio stones. Smoke drifted between us. Bitter, heat curled from the blackened edge of the paper. Why is my name on a beneficiary list? I asked. Scott glanced toward the kitchen windows. It is not what you think. That answer has never made anything clearer. He stepped closer. Morgan, those files contain private information. You could expose people who trusted the foundation. You were burning them in our backyard. I was protecting them. From whom? His jaw tightened. From you turning one bad dinner into a criminal investigation. I folded the surviving corner inward and slipped it into the pocket of my slacks. Scott's gaze followed the movement. You are making a mistake, he said. So are you, I replied. You just chose fire. He walked into the house. I stayed until the last page collapsed into red ash. Inside, Scott stood at the sink with both hands braced against the counter. Jacob embarrassed my mother, he said. Your mother insulted me in front of 20 people. She lost her temper. She used a dead soldier to raise money. You do not know that. I read the envelope. It could have been a printing error. Then why burn the reconciliation list? Scott turned. Because I knew you would do exactly this. Ask questions? Assume the worst. I studied his face. We had been married long enough for me to recognize every version of his anger. This one had fear underneath it. Give me the flash drive, I said. His expression froze. What flash drive? The one you removed from the laptop. Scott looked away for half a second. That was mine. Then show me what is on it. No. The word came too quickly. I set my phone on the table and opened the camera. Scott gave a short laugh. Now you are recording me? I am photographing the paper you tried to burn. He moved toward me. I raised my eyes. Do not touch my phone. He stopped. Scott looked at me as if my silence were a weapon. I photographed the scorched page, then very carefully sealed it inside a plastic bag. You are acting insane, Scott said. Then you should have no trouble proving me wrong. I went upstairs and locked the bedroom door. The next morning, a stack of papers rested beside my coffee mug. Scott pushed them toward me. This will put the whole thing to rest. The first page carried the Homefront Courage logo and an image use authorization. The agreement claimed I had approved the use of my name, likeness, military biography, photographs, and personal service history for every campaign produced by the foundation since 2018. The date at the bottom was yesterday. This is retroactive, I said. It confirms what everyone already understood. I never agreed to this. You agreed to help the foundation. At one barbecue, Scott rubbed his forehead. Do you hear yourself? My mother built an organization that helps veterans, and you are arguing over photographs. A dead man was advertised as waiting for surgery. That has nothing to do with your picture. It has everything to do with who donors trusted. Scott leaned across the table. If you sign, the board can correct the envelope quietly. Jacob can issue a clarification. Everyone moves on. Did you ask Jacob to lie? Nobody asked him to lie. Did Gloria tell him to thank the foundation for money it never gave him? Scott straightened. You should be careful about making accusations. I lifted the agreement. And you should be careful about asking your wife to legalize years of conduct after the fact. His mouth hardened. If donors sue, your name will be in the complaint. That sounds like a threat. It is reality. At the bottom, smaller text declared every prior use authorized from its first publication. Scott had brought me a shield for himself and Gloria. I need time, I said. His shoulders loosened. How much? 1 day. Morgan, the board is already asking questions. Then 1 day should not matter. He nodded, but his eyes remained fixed on the document. Upstairs, I scanned every page to a private account, then opened the oldest message from Homefront Courage. 7 years earlier, Gloria had asked permission to use one family photograph from a summer barbecue. The email named the event, the date, and the printed program, nothing else. My reply was still there. You may use the attached photograph for the barbecue program only. I searched my name through the rest of the account. Campaign brochures appeared one after another, including a newsletter calling me the Foundation's Field Ambassador, a title I had never heard. Each document carried the same digital copy of my signature, identical down to a tiny break in the final curve. One authorization claimed I signed at home while I was training medics in another state. I opened the file properties. The creator field displayed an administrator account, Scott Hayes. My chair creaked beneath me as I leaned back. Downstairs, a cabinet door closed. I preserved the files and photographed the screen. A message appeared from Jacob. Can we meet somewhere private? I answered with the name of a diner near the county line. Before leaving, I noticed a footer code matching the copied authorizations. Scott had not merely known about the documents. He had built the system that created them. The diner smelled of coffee and fried onions. Jacob sat facing the entrance. I slid in across from him. You were right about the foundation, he said. I do not know enough to be right yet. Jacob placed his phone between us. Gloria called me last winter. He pressed play. Gloria's voice came through the phone. We need you to record a short thank you, she said on the call. Nothing complicated. Just explain how Homefront Courage helped cover your recovery. Jacob's recorded voice answered, It did not. Gloria sighed. Jacob, donors do not need every accounting detail. They need to understand impact. You did not pay my bills. Morgan's contribution came through our community. No, it came from Morgan. There was a pause. Then Gloria said, Do not embarrass her by separating what she did from what we made possible. The recording ended. I should have told you sooner, Jacob said. You kept it? After the second call, I started recording. Do not post it. I was not planning to. Do not send it until we preserve the original. Jacob nodded. Then he gave me 3 names from foundation campaigns. One veteran advertised as receiving a renovated bathroom, got only a used wheelchair. Another family said Gloria used their son's photograph without permission. Jacob could not locate the third person. I thought your mother-in-law was exaggerating, he said. Now I think she invented people. My phone vibrated. Gloria's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring. Jacob watched me. You are not going to answer? Not until I know what question she is afraid I will ask. At home, the front camera froze at 9:12 that morning. Static filled the screen for 17 minutes. When the picture returned, Gloria's sedan was pulling away. The angle caught her license plate and a laptop bag on the back seat. I went upstairs. The laptop Scott often used for foundation work was gone. The smart lock showed Scott's personal access code during the blackout. I called him. "Did you give your mother your door code?" I asked. Silence. "Morgan," Scott said, "where are you? Did Gloria take the laptop? You need to calm down. Answer me." She needed foundation files. From our house? It was foundation property. The computer was ours. You barely used it. That is not an answer. Scott exhaled slowly. My mother is trying to fix the mess Jacob created. By removing a computer after disabling my camera, nobody disabled anything. I have the outage time, the lock record, her license plate, and the bag in her back seat. His voice changed. "You are watching my mother now?" "I am watching my house." He hung up. A new email appeared from an unknown address. The subject read, "The real beneficiary list." The message was shorter. "Come alone. Do not tell your husband." The email stayed open on my phone while rainwater ticked against the kitchen window. "Come alone. Do not tell your husband." No name, no signature, only an address for the public library in Pine Hollow and a time that afternoon. Scott's access code still glowed on the smart lock report. Gloria's sedan had appeared on camera after 17 minutes of darkness. The laptop bag sat plainly on her back seat. Someone inside Homefront Courage knew I was asking questions. Someone also knew Scott could not be trusted. I forwarded the message to a private account, photographed the screen, and left the original untouched. Then I placed the burned fragment from the beneficiary list inside a document envelope. Before leaving, I checked the driveway twice. Scott's truck was not there. The library smelled of old paper, damp wool, and floor polish. Fluorescent lights buzzed above the reference section, while a printer coughed behind the circulation desk. She looked younger than Gloria's usual volunteers, with dark curls knotted loosely. Her fingers worried a coffee sleeve. When I stopped beside the table, she looked at my hands first. "Are you Morgan Hayes?" she asked. "Yes. My name is Elena Ruse." She glanced toward the entrance. "I do bookkeeping for Homefront Courage." I sat across from her. "You sent the email." Elena nodded. "Did Scott follow you?" "No." "Did you tell Jacob?" "No." Elena opened a folder but kept one hand over the papers. "I am not giving you bank records," she said. "I do not have access to anyone's private accounts. These are emails and invoices sent to me as part of my job." "That is all I want." She studied my face. "I believed in her," Elena said. Gloria made every case sound personal. She remembered children's names. She cried when families sent photographs. "What changed?" The same invoice appeared under 3 different veterans. Elena slid a page toward me. The Valor Recovery invoice charged for wheelchair ramps, bathroom modifications, and temporary lodging. 3 beneficiary names appeared in the notes, but the project code remained the same. "Could it be one contractor handling several jobs?" I asked. "That is what Gloria said." Elena placed 2 more invoices beside the first. Each used different letterhead but misspelled accessibility assessment the same way. Valor Recovery Consulting, Patriot Medical Transit, Liberty Outreach Media. "All 3 companies make the same mistake," Elena said. "Who uploads these?" "Usually Scott." A chill moved along my arms. Elena turned another page around. "The invoices arrive from different addresses, but the system logs the same internet address when files are uploaded. Can you prove whose connection it is?" "No. I can only show one source. Anything beyond that requires legal authority." Her caution made me trust her more. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "I need someone to make the board look." "Why not go to them yourself?" I tried. She showed me an email requesting receipts. Gloria replied that emergencies required flexible documentation. Scott warned Elena not to delay aid over technicalities. Then came the line that made my jaw tighten. "Morgan does not need access to raw beneficiary files. Send her only approved campaign material." "Scott wrote this?" I asked. "Yes." For years, Scott had built Gloria's slides, managed passwords, and prepared newsletters on our laptop. He had also decided what I was allowed to see. Elena reached deeper into the folder. "This was attached by mistake last week." The Hayes commercial construction invoice listed lumber, fasteners, and roofing membrane for a private development outside Raleigh. A note appeared near the bottom. "Pay when foundation transfer clears." Liberty Outreach Media had requested campaign payment. Scott forwarded the thread from an administrator account and left his construction invoice attached. "This does not prove Liberty paid Scott," Elena said. "It proves his bill was inside a foundation payment thread, and he was waiting for that transfer." That is how I read it. A code appeared beside the material order. I had seen the same pattern on the Valor invoice. Elena pulled out 3 payment requests. The same project code appeared on all of them, though each claimed to support a different veteran. My phone vibrated against the table. Scott's name filled the screen. Neither of us spoke until it stopped. Then a message appeared. "Where are you?" Elena looked toward the window. "You should go." "Not yet." "Morgan, if Scott realizes I contacted you, I could lose my job." "You may lose it even if you stay quiet." Her eyes flashed. "I know." Elena gathered the papers. "I can give these to a lawyer or an auditor," she said. "Not to you directly. I need a record of what leaves my possession." "That is the right way." Relief passed over her face. Before closing the folder, she showed me outgoing payments approved days before deadlines on Scott's business loan. The schedule did not show where vendor money went afterward, only when the foundation paid. "His lender gave him until the end of this month," Elena said. "If the company misses the payment, equipment can be seized." "How much?" $180,000. The number settled between us. Gloria had a deadline. So did Scott. Elena closed the folder. "There is something else." Harold Pierce signed most of the checks. "The treasurer. He says he does not remember the details." "Do you believe him?" "I do not know. I left with no files, only Elena's agreement to speak with counsel. By evening, Jacob had helped me locate Harold. He lived in a brick house with wind chimes over the porch. His cardigan was buttoned wrong. "I have nothing to say about Gloria," Harold said. "I asked about the foundation. That is the same thing." He tried to close the door. I placed no hand against it. "Eric Bell has been dead for 3 years," I said. "His name is still raising money." Harold stopped. The wind chimes clicked above us. After a long moment, he let me inside. His living room smelled of dust and peppermint. Unopened mail crowded a side table. Harold lowered himself into a chair. "Gloria said emergencies could not wait for meetings," he told me. "She brought checks between church services. Sometimes she left sticky notes where I should sign." "Blank checks?" His gaze dropped. "Not always blank." "Sometimes?" "Yes." "Did Scott bring any?" Harold rubbed both palms over his knees. "More than Gloria did." He reached beneath the chair cushion and removed a narrow notebook. Dates, check numbers, vendor names, and warnings filled the pages. No receipt. "Gloria promised paperwork." Scott said urgent. "What is this?" I asked. "My memory," Harold said. "The one they keep telling everyone I lost." He handed me the notebook. I did not take it. "Keep it until a lawyer can preserve it properly." Harold looked at me then. "Your husband told the board you were unstable." "When?" "This morning." Gloria sent an email. She said combat stress made you suspicious and aggressive. My phone buzzed again. This time the message came from Jacob. A video was spreading through the donor group. I opened the link. The recording began with me asking who verified Eric Bell's campaign. Everything before that was gone. So were Gloria's insult, Jacob's scar, and his documents. Only my questions remained. A caption beneath the video read, "Decorated soldier attacks elderly charity founder during private dinner." Harold watched my face. "What will you do?" he asked. I locked the screen. "First, I am going to make sure they cannot erase another file." Outside, I called Nicole Bennett, a nonprofit attorney Jacob trusted. When I finished, Nicole said, "Do not publish anything. Do not confront Gloria. Bring me only records you received lawfully. Elena will cooperate." "Good. I will send preservation notices tonight." "To whom?" "The foundation, its board, the email provider, and every vendor named in those invoices." "What happens if they delete files after receiving notice?" Nicole's voice became still. "Then the deletion becomes part of the case." An hour later, Scott's truck sat in our driveway. His office light shone beneath the door, but the knob would not turn. He had changed the lock. On the dining table rested a thick envelope. Scott stepped from the hallway. "My attorney filed for separation," he said. I opened the envelope. His signature waited beneath a demand that I stop contacting foundation employees. Scott watched me read. "You wanted an investigation," he said. "Now everything between us will be documented." I raised my eyes. "That may be the first honest thing you have done." His face hardened. Behind him, his phone lit on the counter. A preview from Gloria appeared across the screen. "Move the money before the board freezes anything." The message on Scott's phone vanished before I could read more than 6 words. "Move the money before the board freezes anything." Scott crossed the kitchen and picked up the device. "Who was that?" I asked. "My attorney." "Your attorney calls herself Gloria?" His thumb locked the screen. "You had no right to read my messages. You left it face up on the counter. That does not make it yours. Neither did my photograph, my signature, or my house." But Scott had stopped recognizing boundaries. I placed the separation papers inside their envelope. "What money is Gloria moving?" Scott laughed once. "You saw half a sentence." "I saw enough." "You always think you see enough." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you contact another foundation employee, my lawyer will treat it as harassment." "Elena contacted me." His eyes changed at her name. "Stay away from her." "Why?" "She is a disgruntled bookkeeper who mishandled confidential records. She showed me documents sent to her through her job." "You met with her?" Scott's anger exposed his fear. I picked up my phone. "You said everything between us would be documented." "Morgan, do not play games with me." "I am not playing." I called Nicole before Scott could say anything else. She answered on the second ring. "Are you safe?" Nicole asked. "I am in my kitchen. Scott is here." Scott turned away, pressing both hands to the counter. I told Nicole about Gloria's message without embellishment. "Do not touch his phone," Nicole said. "Write down exactly what you saw, the time, and where the device was lying." "I already remember it." "Memory is not preservation. Write it." Scott looked over his shoulder. Nicole continued. "The board's counsel confirmed receipt of the preservation notice. If funds are being moved, the board needs an emergency meeting. Can they freeze the foundation's accounts? They can restrict internal authority. A bank freeze is different and may require additional action. Do not promise anyone more than the board can legally do." Her precision steadied me. After the call, I wrote every detail in a notebook while Scott watched. "You are documenting your own marriage now?" he asked. "I am documenting conduct." His mouth twisted. "Same difference." "No. A marriage is what we had. Conduct is what you chose." Scott left the room without answering. The next morning, Nicole met me at her office. The carpet smelled of dust and copier heat. Rainwater chilled my cuffs. She reviewed the separation filing, the retroactive image release, and photographs of the burned beneficiary page. Then she placed the home deed between us. "You bought this property before the marriage," Nicole said. "With money my father left me." "Title remained in your name?" "Yes." "That gives us a strong separate property argument, but do not assume every dollar connected to the house is automatically beyond dispute. Scott may claim marital contributions increased its value." "I understand." Nicole turned another page. "Did you authorize a home equity line?" "No." "There is one." The room seemed to narrow. "How much?" $120,000. My fingertips went numb against the chair arms. "When?" "Opened 2 years ago." "I was never told." "Your signature appears on the application." I leaned forward. The copied curve at the bottom looked familiar because it was mine, but not from any bank document. The final stroke had the same broken loop as the foundation authorizations. "Scott copied this," I said. Nicole studied me. "Where were you on the signing date?" "At a training rotation outside the state." "Can you prove it?" "Orders, travel records, lodging receipts, duty rosters." "Good. We will request the complete loan file, including notary records and any identity verification." "What was the money used for?" "We do not know yet." Nicole refused to turn suspicion into fact. A knock sounded. Elena entered with a banker's box held against her chest. Behind her came Harold Pierce. His cardigan was buttoned correctly this time, but his hands shook around the notebook he carried. Nicole stood. "Before anyone opens anything, I need to establish what each of you brought and how you obtained it." For the next hour, Elena identified invoices, emails, and payment requests she had handled as part of her work. Harold described every check he had signed and every occasion Gloria or Scott had promised supporting paperwork later. No one guessed about vendor accounts. No one claimed to know where money went after leaving the foundation. The facts inside Homefront Courage were damaging enough. 3 vendors had received hundreds of thousands of dollars. The same project codes appeared under unrelated veterans. No completed work files existed. Several beneficiary signatures were missing. Scott had uploaded most of the supporting documents. Harold opened his notebook. "Gloria told me the board had approved emergency authority," he said. "Did you verify that?" Nicole asked. Harold stared at the floor. "No." "Why not?" "Because she said people would suffer while I asked for minutes and signatures." His voice cracked. "I wanted to believe urgency was the same as honesty." Elena slid an email toward Nicole. This came last night. Scott had ordered her to revise several invoice descriptions and replace the old project codes before the next board review. Nicole read the message twice. Did you respond? I said I needed written authorization. What did he say? Elena unlocked her phone and displayed the reply. Stop acting like an auditor. Fix the folder. Nicole photographed nothing herself. She instructed Elena to preserve the original device and export the conversation through a forensic professional later. My phone vibrated. Jacob's name appeared. I met Scott, Jacob said when I answered. Nicole raised one finger, asking me to put the call on speaker only after Jacob agreed. He offered to cover the rest of my medical care, Jacob said. In exchange for what? I asked. A statement saying you pressured me at dinner. Harold closed his eyes. Did you record him? Nicole asked. Yes. North Carolina allows me to record a conversation I am part of. Keep the original file untouched, Nicole said. Did he put anything in writing? He emailed afterward, called it our arrangement. That word sounded heavier than a confession. By noon, 2 board members had requested an emergency vote. Gloria objected, claiming Morgan was using a marital dispute to seize control of the foundation. The meeting took place by video conference. Gloria appeared in her office with an American flag behind her. Scott sat beside her. Harold joined from Nicole's conference room. Elena remained off camera but available. Board member Diane Porter spoke first. Until an independent review is completed, I move that no vendor payment be approved by a single officer. Gloria smiled patiently. This panic is based on stolen records and the accusations of an emotionally compromised soldier. Heat moved across my face, but I remained silent. Diane looked directly at the camera. Gloria, did you authorize Homefront Courage to use Eric Bell's name after his death? That material was prepared by staff. Did you know he was dead? I do not remember every family update. Harold opened his notebook. You attended his memorial, he said. Gloria's smile disappeared. Scott leaned toward his microphone. This board is not qualified to conduct an investigation, Diane answered. That is why the motion includes hiring an independent forensic accountant. The vote passed. Gloria retained her title temporarily, but lost the power to approve payments alone. Vendor disbursements required 2 unrelated board members. Administrator passwords would be reset under council supervision. Scott's face remained still until Diane added one final condition. All records must be preserved. Gloria looked at her son. Neither seemed certain what the other might destroy. The meeting ended. 10 minutes later, Elena's phone rang. She listened, then covered the receiver. It is the bank, she whispered. A transfer was submitted before the new controls took effect. Nicole's expression sharpened. To whom? Elena listened again. Valor Recovery Consulting. How much? Harold asked. Elena swallowed. $96,000. A cold weight settled behind my ribs. Scott had not been bluffing about urgency. Outside the conference room, someone struck the glass door. Scott stood in the hallway. He held another envelope in one hand. Nicole rose. Do not open that door. Scott lifted the papers so I could see the signature page. It was the proposed marital settlement. He pointed at me through the glass. Then he tapped a clause with one finger. Nicole moved closer without unlocking the door. The clause required me to withdraw every accusation against Homefront Courage in exchange for Scott waiving any claim to my military retirement and the house. Scott smiled. My husband had finally named his price for the truth. Scott kept tapping the settlement clause against the glass as though repetition could turn extortion into negotiation. Nicole did not unlock the conference room. Leave the documents with reception, she said through the door. Scott's smile thinned. I am speaking to my wife. You are communicating through counsel now, Nicole replied. His eyes found mine. You know what happens if the foundation collapses, Scott said. Employees lose jobs, veterans lose support. Donors sue everyone whose name appears on campaign material. My name appears because you put it there, I said. I am offering to protect you. You are offering to stop stealing from me if I help you hide what you stole from them. Scott lowered the papers. You think the house is safe because your father bought it, he said. Ask your lawyer about the credit line. Nicole's posture changed slightly. Scott saw it. That is right, he said. Ask her. He left the envelope at reception and walked away. Inside the conference room, Elena remained beside the telephone, one hand pressed to her throat. Harold stared at the board vote on his screen. Jacob's recorded offer from Scott waited on Nicole's desk. The $96,000 transfer to Valor Recovery had been submitted before the new controls took effect. It had not yet cleared. Nicole called the foundation's bank with Harold and Diane Porter on the line. Nobody used the word freeze. Diane, acting under the emergency board resolution, requested that the pending transfer be held for secondary authorization. The bank representative asked for minutes, identification, and confirmation from another unrelated director. Nicole kept everyone within what they could legally request. 40 minutes later, the transfer status changed from pending to review. Gloria called Harold immediately. He placed the phone on speaker after telling her Nicole was present. "You had no authority to interfere," Gloria said. "The board changed the approval rules," Harold answered. "That payment was for veterans waiting on home repairs." "Which veterans?" Silence followed. Harold opened his notebook. "Give me the names," he said. Gloria's voice hardened. "You are confused." "No," Harold said. "I was obedient." Gloria hung up. By late afternoon, the independent forensic accountant had received access to the foundation's own ledgers, contracts, invoices, and board records. Nothing outside Homefront Courage. No private bank accounts. No assumptions about where vendor money went after payment. Within 2 days, the preliminary findings were worse than any single missing check. More than $600,000 had been paid to Valor Recovery Consulting, Patriot Medical Transit, and Liberty Outreach Media over 3 years. All 3 vendors submitted files through the same internet address. 2 used neighboring postal boxes. 1 listed Scott's construction manager as its registered organizer. Another named a trust connected to Gloria in public business records. None disclosed those relationships to the board. The accountant found no completed work reports for most projects, no delivery confirmations, no signed inspections, no photographs that could be matched to addresses in the case files. Several after photographs came from old construction listings. One showed a wheelchair ramp in Oregon. The veteran named in the campaign lived in North Carolina. Nicole laid the preliminary report before me. "This proves unsupported spending and undisclosed related party transactions," she said. "It does not prove what the vendors did with the money after receiving it." "What does it justify?" "Suspending payments, removing access, notifying insurers and grant makers, and referring the matter for investigation. A process she could no longer control. For once, the records were beginning to speak louder than Gloria. The next morning, Jacob and I verified Eric Bell's campaigns with his sister, Marissa. She arrived at Nicole's office carrying a blue folder against her chest. Her eyes were the same gray as Eric's. "I sent Gloria his obituary," Marissa said. She answered me. Nicole asked permission before opening the folder. Inside was the email from April of 2023. Gloria had written that Eric's courage would remain at the heart of Homefront Courage. 3 months later, the foundation raised money for his upcoming reconstructive surgery. Then again before Thanksgiving. Again the following summer. The current envelope was the 4th campaign after his death. Marissa placed both hands flat on the table. "She came to his memorial," she said. "She hugged my mother." I thought of Gloria telling the board she could not remember every family update. Marissa's voice dropped. "Did any of that money go to other veterans?" "We do not know yet," I said. "Then why use Eric?" "Because dead men could not ask for receipts." I did not say it aloud. That evening, Gloria waited beside my car outside church. Her navy coat was buttoned to the throat. Cold wind carried the smell of pine mulch and candle smoke from the open sanctuary doors. "You brought Eric's sister into this," Gloria said. "You brought Eric into it 3 years after he died. A foundation uses stories to inspire donors. A story has to belong to the person telling it. Do not lecture me about service. I am asking about money." Gloria looked toward the parking lot, checking who might hear. "Scott's company employs 34 people," she said. "Families depend on those paychecks." "What does that have to do with Homefront Courage? You know exactly what financial pressure can do to a business." "No, tell me." Her face tightened. "Temporary support was arranged through vendors. Work would have been completed once the company recovered." "You used restricted donations as a bridge loan?" "I did not say that." "You came close." Gloria stepped nearer. "I can end this quietly. Scott will withdraw any claim to the house. You will receive a fair settlement. I will retire from the foundation." "In exchange for what?" "You sign a statement saying there was no intentional wrongdoing." "And stop the review." "Yes." There it was. Not remorse. A purchase offer. "What happens to Eric's family?" I asked. "They do not need to know every internal error." "What happens to Jacob?" "He received help. From me." Gloria's mouth flattened. "You always needed everyone to know you were the savior." "No." You needed everyone to think you were. For the first time, anger broke through her control. You would destroy your husband to prove a point? Scott made my name a fundraising tool. He copied my signature. He used my house to secure debt. You both chose this. Gloria leaned close enough for her rose perfume to cut through the cold air. If you refuse, the entire family will know you chose strangers over your husband. They were strangers to you only after their stories stopped producing donations. I got into my car and locked the door. Gloria stood beside the window until I drove away. The preservation notice had already reached the foundation's email provider. That night, Elena received 3 instructions from Scott. Change the descriptions on old invoices. Replace duplicate project codes. Create completion notes for missing files. She answered that she required written authorization. Scott replied, "Stop acting like an auditor. Clean up the folder before tomorrow." Minutes later, Gloria instructed Elena to sign a meeting record dated 6 months earlier. Elena refused. At midnight, administrator accounts began deleting beneficiary folders. The email provider retained login history, version records, and deletion timestamps. Scott's account removed the invoices. Gloria's account deleted Eric's campaign approvals. Every deletion occurred after both had received preservation notices. At 1 in the morning, Elena called me from behind her locked apartment door. "Scott is outside," she whispered. A man's voice carried through the wood. "Elena, open the door. We need to fix this before you ruin your career." I heard him knock again. "You took confidential files," Scott called. "You should think about what happens when the police hear that." Elena's breathing shook. "Do not open it," I said. "I already called Nicole. Call emergency services if he threatens entry." The hallway camera recorded Scott leaning close to the door. "You have family here," he said. "Do not make this harder for them." A siren sounded in the distance. Scott stepped away before officers arrived, but the camera kept his face, his words, and the time. The following morning, Nicole received a recovered file list from the foundation's provider. One deleted spreadsheet had been opened repeatedly from the shared laptop Scott used at home. The file tracked campaign dates, photographs, and donor response. Beside my image, Scott had written 2 words, "highest conversion." Below it, another note read, "Do not include the full case spreadsheet in Morgan's review folder. She only needs approved campaign copy." Scott had not merely allowed Gloria to use me. He had measured how much my face was worth. Scott had reduced my face to 2 words, "highest conversion." The phrase sat on Nicole's conference table beside the recovered spreadsheet, cold and neat in Scott's familiar font. Around it were campaign dates, donor totals, approved photographs, and notes about which stories produced the strongest response. My uniform had not represented service to him. It had represented revenue. Nicole closed the file. "The board meeting is tomorrow," she said. "You need to decide whether you are prepared to hear them attack you again." "I have already heard the worst." "No," Nicole replied. "You have heard insults. Tomorrow they will call you unstable, vindictive, dishonest, and disloyal. They will say you used your military position to frighten an elderly woman." My throat tightened. "What do I wear?" "Not your uniform." I was not planning to. "Good. Let the documents carry the authority." The next afternoon, rain pressed a gray sheen over the parking lot outside Homefront Courage. Donors clustered beneath umbrellas near the entrance. Some held signs supporting Gloria. Others stared at me as if I had personally closed every ramp, clinic, and recovery program in the state. I wore a dark suit and carried nothing except my identification and a notebook. Gloria arrived in a wheelchair. She had walked unaided through church 3 days earlier. Scott pushed her toward the building while cameras followed. Gloria wore a pale scarf around her shoulders and held one trembling hand over her heart. "She is staging this," Jacob murmured beside me. "Let her," I said. Inside, the boardroom smelled of wet coats, coffee, and overheated electronics. An American flag stood behind Gloria's chair. Someone had arranged bottled water in front of every seat. Scott sat at her right. Gloria folded her hands. "I want the record to show that Morgan has pursued this campaign while suffering from unresolved combat stress," she said. Nicole did not react. Diane Porter leaned toward her microphone. "This meeting concerns foundation records." "It concerns motive," Gloria replied. "Morgan has always resented the attention this charity receives." A soft murmur moved through the observers. Scott looked at me. "My wife has been under enormous pressure," he said. "Her judgment has changed." The word wife sounded obscene in his mouth. Diane turned to me. "Would you like to respond?" "No," I said. "Please continue with the records." Gloria's eyes narrowed. She had prepared for anger. Silence left her nothing to control. Jacob testified first. He stood without lifting his shirt this time. Everyone in the room already knew about the scar. Homefront Courage claimed it paid for my recovery, Jacob said. It did not. Gloria interrupted. Mr. Turner received community support connected to this foundation. Jacob placed copies of the cashier's check, hospital statement, and Gloria's recorded request before the board. The audio played through the room. Donors do not need every accounting detail. Gloria's own voice filled the speakers. When the recording ended, Scott leaned toward his attorney. Jacob continued. Scott offered to pay my remaining medical costs if I said Morgan pressured me. Nicole displayed Scott's follow-up email. Our arrangement. Scott sat back. I was helping an old friend, he said. You conditioned that help on a false statement, Diane replied. Scott looked toward Gloria. For the first time, she did not look back. Marissa Bell entered carrying Eric's obituary and the email Gloria had sent after his death. My brother died in April of 2023, Marissa said. Gloria attended his memorial. Gloria lifted her chin. I attend many memorials. Marissa opened the email. You wrote that Eric's courage would remain at the heart of Homefront Courage. I write hundreds of condolence messages. Then you used his name 4 times to raise money for surgeries he could never receive. No one moved. Marissa's voice stayed level. My mother saw the newest envelope. She thought someone had made a mistake about whether her son was alive. The cruelty of that sentence changed the room. Gloria reached for her water but missed the bottle. The forensic accountant spoke next. He did not accuse anyone of stealing private funds. He stayed inside the foundation's records. Homefront Courage paid more than $600,000 to 3 vendors, he said. Those payments lack sufficient proof of charitable services. A screen showed Valor Recovery, Patriot Medical Transit, and Liberty Outreach Media. The accountant explained the common upload source, repeated project codes, neighboring postal boxes, related business registrations, and missing delivery records. Scott interrupted. Those vendors used subcontractors. Please provide the subcontractor records, the accountant said. They are being gathered. You were asked for them 3 weeks ago. Scott's jaw flexed. The accountant displayed photographs attached to renovation reports. One image came from a real estate listing in Oregon. Another was used for 2 different veterans in separate counties. A donor near the wall whispered, "Oh God." Gloria turned toward the board. Administrative failures do not equal fraud. No conclusion about criminal liability is being made here, the accountant said. My conclusion is that the foundation cannot show these funds served the stated charitable purposes. Nicole then presented my original image authorization. 1 photograph, 1 barbecue, 1 printed program. Next came the later documents. Every signature matched perfectly. A technical specialist explained that the files had been created through the administrator account Scott controlled. Scott leaned toward the microphone. Morgan gave broad verbal permission. Then why create retroactive written authorization after the dinner? Nicole asked. Scott said nothing. The recovered spreadsheet appeared. Highest conversion. Several donors looked at me, then quickly away. Gloria spoke before anyone asked. Marketing language can sound insensitive outside its context. You called her image a conversion tool, Diane said. I did not write that note. Scott's head turned sharply. Gloria looked at him. He handled technical operations, she added. Scott's face reddened. You approved every campaign, he said. I approved material presented as accurate. You gave me the beneficiary names. You selected the vendors. Their alliance cracked in front of us. Nicole let the silence widen before showing the deletion log. Both Scott's and Gloria's accounts had altered or removed records after receiving preservation notices. Gloria's attorney touched her arm. She pulled away. Elena Ruiz manipulated those files, Gloria said. Elena stood from the second row. I preserved the emails you sent me. Her voice shook once, then steadied. The instruction to change invoice descriptions appeared on the screen. So did Gloria's demand that Elena sign a meeting record dated 6 months earlier. Scott tried to speak. Diane stopped him. "We have heard enough." The board moved into formal votes. Gloria was removed as chair. Scott's vendor relationships were terminated. All administrative access was revoked. The foundation's insurer, grant makers, and appropriate authorities would receive the records. Council was authorized to pursue recovery of unsupported payments. Each motion passed. Gloria stared at me. "Stop this," she said. Her voice had lost its public warmth. "You know what this will do to our family." Emet Hergaze. "You protected what you could own." A staff member approached for her keys, access card, and foundation laptop. Gloria held the card against her chest. "This organization is mine." "No," Diane said. "It never was." Outside, reporters crowded the walkway. Nicole guided me toward the side exit. Scott followed us into the parking garage. "You think this means you are free?" he called. I turned. Rainwater dripped from the edge of his coat. His face looked older without Gloria beside him. Scott held up a copy of the home equity agreement. "This house secured more than you know," he said. Nicole stepped between us. "Any communication goes through counsel." Scott ignored her. "If the lender enforces the lien, you lose the house before the divorce is finished." "You forged my signature," I said. "Prove it." He shoved the document toward me. At the bottom, beside the copied signature, was the notary date. I knew exactly where I had been that day. 3 states away. Scott smiled as if the date belonged to him. Nicole took the page without touching the signature line. "Do not argue with him," she said. Scott's smile widened. Behind us, the boardroom doors opened. Gloria's voice spilled into the garage as she demanded her office back. No one answered. The sound followed Scott across the concrete, furious. He glanced toward it. That was when I finally saw his confidence slip. It did not belong to him. It belonged to my orders, my travel records, the base lodging system, and every soldier who had watched me teach that morning. For the first time since the bank called, I understood something Scott did not. The house was not his final weapon. It was the document that would finish him. The lender did not remove the lien because I said the signature was false. Nicole filed a fraud affidavit, requested the loan package, and sent notice that enforcement was disputed. The bank paused collection during review. 3 days later, the notary log arrived. My name appeared beside a date when I had been conducting combat lifesaver training in Tennessee. My orders, duty roster, and travel vouchers placed me hundreds of miles from the closing table. The notary had recorded no video verification, identification scan, or explanation for an out-of-state signer. Scott had counted on nobody checking. That mistake broke the last wall around him. Civil discovery began after the foundation sued the related vendors. Court-ordered records showed that Valor Recovery and Liberty Outreach had transferred money into accounts used for Scott's business debts. Another covered Gloria's investment property mortgage. Scott tried to cooperate before Gloria did. He gave investigators emails, ledgers, and account statements, claiming his mother had directed everything. Gloria answered by producing messages in which Scott proposed the vendor structure. One email read, "Use Morgan's photo. Donations double when people see the uniform." Nicole placed the printed message in front of him during our settlement conference. Scott did not look at me. "I was trying to save the company," he said. "You used wounded veterans to save it," I replied. 34 employees depended on me. "So did your wife." His eyes lifted. "You could still help me." "No." The word came easily. He had mistaken my patience for an unlimited resource. There was none left. The fraudulent lien was released after the bank accepted that I had not signed the documents. Scott remained responsible for the funds tied to the loan. His company entered liquidation. Equipment was sold. Employee wages and lawful claims were addressed before anything could return to him. Our divorce ended without reconciliation. The house remained mine, subject to the court's review of marital contributions. Scott received no ownership because he had tried to borrow against it. Gloria lost more than her title. The foundation pursued repayment. Grant makers demanded reimbursement. Investigators confirmed donations had been diverted through related companies and used for private obligations. Her investment property was sold as part of restitution. The court barred her from managing charitable organizations. Her sentence included confinement, supervised release, and repayment. At sentencing, Gloria turned toward me. "I treated you like family," she said. The courtroom stayed silent. "No," I answered. "You treated me like inventory." Scott sat behind his attorney, staring at the floor. Neither apologized to Jacob, Marissa, Elena, Harold, or the families whose grief had been converted into campaign material. Homefront Courage did not survive under its name. A smaller organization replaced it months later with independent audits, conflict disclosures, and written consent requirements for every photograph and story. They invited me to become its honorary face. I declined. Jacob declined too. "My scar is not an advertisement," he said. Elena accepted a position with another nonprofit. Harold testified, apologized publicly, and helped families identify which records were real. Some relatives called me after Gloria's conviction. A few apologized before asking whether we could put everything behind us. I stayed close only to those who had supported the truth before supporting me became comfortable. On the afternoon before Gloria's old office was cleared, Jacob came with me to retrieve my photograph. It still hung behind the desk. The frame felt heavier than it looked. Dust coated the top edge. When I lifted it from the wall, a clean rectangle remained against the faded paint. Jacob watched me hold it. "Want me to throw it away?" he asked. "No." I removed the foundation plaque from the bottom and placed it on the empty desk. The photograph showed me in uniform, kneeling beside a training casualty, focused on the work before me. No slogan, no donation number, no Gloria standing beside me. At home, I placed it inside a cabinet with Jacob's hospital letter and the real notes from soldiers I had trained. Then I closed the door. My house was quiet. For the first time in years, the silence did not feel like something being hidden. It felt like mine.